Police Minister Bheki Cele following his revelations at the National Assembly on Tuesday that there is a backlog of over 200,000 DNA samples still to be tested in the country's national science laboratories. Cele apologised to the victims of gender-based violence for the delay. Members of Parliament concurred that the backlog has resulted in injustice and victims have been let down by the law. The alarm was raised by members of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police, Andrew Whitfield, in 2019 when he discovered a shortage of rape kits at police stations. Advocate Brenda Madumise, the director of Women's Empower organisation Wise for Africa, joins us via Zoom to talk about this situation. Advocate, great to have you. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme.
Good morning, Leah, and good morning to the viewers.
Advocate, I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to watch the Minister's interview a little bit earlier, and if so, what is your response to him?
I've watched the interview, but remember that this is not new, as you indicated earlier in your insert that a member of Parliament had raised the alarm in 2019. And once that alarm was raised, and you remember that the President, during the Uyinene protest in Cape Town, then announced an emergency response action plan. And one of the things that came out of that plan was that the police, they're going to set up a forensic lab in the Eastern Cape, because you will know that in the Eastern Cape, for the police to process any DNA samples, they have to drive through the Western Cape. Now, that's an injustice on its own. They had undertaken to build a lab by last year, which did not happen, and everyone else is blaming COVID, which is not true. Then they also talked about the backlog, because the backlog was identified around DNA samples involving gender-based violence cases. They indicated how they're going to reduce the backlog, right? And that was in October. Let's remember that the report, this emergency response action plan, was given by the police themselves on the things that they were going to do that were quick, and these were quick interventions, right? But since October 2019, they had been saying to us that they are reducing the backlog. They never shared with the South African public on what were the challenges that made it impossible for them to process the DNA samples, especially in relation to gender-based violence cases. So the whole of 2019, on things that they had said in a report that they will do, they failed to do that, right? And now we get told that supply chain is an issue. Supply chain with the police has been an issue for the longest of time.
Yeah.
And so we cannot accept that excuse any longer. And what this has done and continues to do to victims and survivors of gender-based violence is that they continue to be victimized, and that's secondary victimization from the police, but also from the public. Because once I go forward and come forward with my rape charges against an individual, and I'm treated the way I am by the police, that my case takes 2 years, 3 years for it to be resolved. Can you imagine what that does to an individual, the trauma, but also that people start not to believe that it's true that I was a victim of rape. And what is happening in the country at the moment is that women are left on their own demise to continue to prove their cases by themselves, and they've become a laughing stock, because people think that we are crazy by saying some of these things, that the rape cases in this country are huge, and we have a police service that is failing them on a daily basis. So that the police minister is apologizing. It doesn't take away the trauma that has been suffered already by women who have been waiting for so many years for justice.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I was trying to emphasize when I was talking to the minister. It's actually not about it's not anything new, and I think that's what you're emphasizing as well. This has been around. The numbers have been growing. I mean, we're talking to the fact that the number grew from 173,000. This was in April to around about 200,000 now, and we're talking about interventions, but it's not working. I mean, whatever they're doing, it doesn't seem to be working now.
And truly, and it doesn't seem to be working precisely because, you see, for us, and we're at a point where we are not going to be excited about the revelations by the minister that, supply chain in the police service. So if this country and its leaders have come out in different platforms telling South Africans about how gender-based violence is a scourge and how it's another pandemic, and your reaction and your response is this, then please can they stop saying all of these things and admit that they have failed us, so that they're just being performative in saying the things because they think that we want to hear some of these things, when in fact the machinery and the system that is supposed to work is failing. And all that they need to do is to come out open and say, this system is failing us, we are going back to the drawing board, and we need to find a system that can address gender-based violence with speed, with swiftness, and with determination. Because at the moment, there's no, what the police and the leadership of this country is like they're doing us a favor and by saying these things, and when they know deep down that there's nothing like what they're telling us. And for me, is that they just need to have integrity and come out and say, this is not working, and we would like to, and don't apologize. Yeah. Don't apologize, because you are making it worse when you start to say you are sorry about what has happened. You are not sorry. Yeah. You have known about it, and you keep on saying resources, but you are expending these resources somewhere else instead of giving it to a cause that you have been telling us for so many years that it is a crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I know the minister even talking to issues of corruption and maladministration and all of these things, and, talking about something and saying that we will investigate and roles must roll when nothing's happening. But I understand that. I want to really get a sense of what's actually going on the ground. I mean, what is the actual effect of a backlog like this? I mean, when you're working with communities and victims, what is it like?
Oh God, it's, when you have individuals who have literally given up. When a woman is crying and say, I did everything that I was told to do when I am sexually violated. When I was raped, I was told not to wash. I went to a Tutuzela center. A whole examination was done. There's a statement that I have compiled. It's 2 years, it's 3 years, it's 4 years that I've been waiting. So what? When we are told that there are laws and there's a process that we need to follow, and you do that to the T, and still 3 years down the line, your case has not even come before a court for prosecution, and you keep on going to court, it's postponed. You keep on going to court, it's postponed. And what it does, and as I said earlier, what it does to an individual is the trauma is untold. And I think we have not spoken about the trauma of many victims of gender-based violence. And when you see the responses that come out in social media and how South Africans respond to cases such as these, when women report rape, I mean, they become a laughing stock, and men believe that now, because there is no progress and there is no convictions or even prosecution. They do these things with impunity. Yeah. So impunity continues with perpetrators of violence, because they know that it takes South African Police Service a bloody long time to do anything, and that in itself tells everyone else that it's a free-for-all. We are lawless, and no rule of law that is respected. So why should victims come out and report cases of their violations, sexual violations? And that's why rape is underreported in this country, because of the experience of many victims and survivors who have come before the system and reported it the way they were told to report, and nothing has happened. So you have many women who have been violated, who have decided, I will not expose myself to this system that is going to re-victimize me again. No. Yeah. And that's what is happening.
And then they remain silent, and the vicious circle continues.
Oh, yes. It continues.
It continues.
Yeah. And then
And
and we stand up and talk. Yeah, sorry, Leah.
No, Advocate, I understand how passionate you are about this. And also, the perpetrator walks around free and the victim has to watch this. And, this is what causes the society that we're unfortunately living in right now, where there is no justice for crimes committed. But, Advocate, I need to ask you, obviously this is happening to so many people and so many families. Are there any lawsuits that are pending against government? Because if this has been going on for years, is there anything like that out there?
Yeah, that's true that we're working on. So there's one that you know of, a woman who was gang raped in the Eastern Cape in Port Elizabeth, right?
Yeah.
That the woman took the police to court for just negligence, sheer negligence of them not properly investigating the scenery where she was. They could not even go and take the fingerprints on her car when she said to them, "These people tampered with my car." Nothing was done. They did not do that. She then took the police to court in the Eastern Cape High Court. She won her case against the police, and there were damages awarded against the police. The police decided to appeal that case, right? It went to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court of Appeal finds in the police, South African police favor. We then took the matter to the Constitutional Court, which was held in February this year, actually. So we're awaiting a decision by the Constitutional Court. There's one that we're busy with paperwork to sue the police for their ineptness and negligence, and we're using their own internal documents. If you go to a police station today, anywhere, you will find a code of conduct posted on their wall in the police station. There's also a service charter. They're supposed to act in accordance with that charter. They trample on it on a daily basis. And we now say, you on your own words, you have said this is how you'll carry yourself, this is how you will perform, this is how you'll execute your responsibility and duties. You fail on a daily basis, and now we are suing you for being negligent and not performing to the very standard that you set for yourselves.
I just want to talk on a related matter before we need to wrap. The expansion of the scope of the National Register for Sex Offenders include particulars of all sex offenders, not only those that have committed offences against children, as per the Sexes Offences and Related Matters Amendment. But what schools are saying is that the list is still not available, and that some of these offenders who have raped still have access to school children. Can you update us? What advocacy groups saying about this, and what is government doing? So
you know that the 3 amendments came before the Portfolio Committee last year, just before around May 2020. And most civil society organizations and advocacy groups like ourselves, we've made submissions on the 3 amendments. The Domestic Violence is the Sexual Amendment Act. And it was about the opening of the register, that it becomes public, but you broaden it. It's just about children and mentally challenged individuals. It's now open. If anyone who is found to have violated another human being, they will be on that register, and that register must be made public. Now, there's been contestation in Parliament around what this public means. Can the register be available at any given time? And our view is that it should be. I should be able to access it from the website of the Department of Justice by requesting that information, right? And there are views that are coming up that it's an invasion of privacy and all of that. If we want to deal with the scourge of violence in this country, especially sexual offences against children, against LGBTQI community, against women, we cannot continue to hide behind privacy when there is no issue with privacy. If you look at other jurisdictions in the world, sex offenders registers exist, and you, as a member of public, you can access that information and get to know that there is a sex offender in my community. What do we do as a community to protect ourselves now that we know that there is a sexual predator in our community? Okay. At the moment, any school or church or anyone who works with children should be able to access that information. But there is this reluctance from the state to give that information, even when the law allows for a school, for instance, to ask for information if they're about to employ an individual, to say, can we just check and confirm and verify that this individual is not on the sex register? We have to have a culture where when requests are made, that request is acceded to and is made available.
All right. Advocate, we have to leave it there, but I do think that you've given us a lot of food for thought, and we thank you so much for your time, for being with us here on the programme and responding to, firstly, the issue of the backlog on the DNA testing and the repercussions that this is having on victims, and certainly on the morale within communities, and how victims are just not wanting to come forward, waiting 3-4 years for any justice and just not even reporting anymore. And then, of course, that sexual offences bill that is in, but we're still waiting for that list, and this is a big issue.